How measurement replaced certainty. For a long time, certainty felt earned. Measure carefully. Calculate precisely. Know exactly. Physics promised that with enough care, reality would reveal itself fully formed. Measurement was supposed to uncover facts that already existed. The act of observing was passive, harmless, invisible to the outcome. To understand why this belief collapsed, we need to revisit how deeply certainty shaped science. Classical experiments rewarded precision. Better instruments meant better answers. Each generation of technology brought measurements closer to what was assumed to be the true value, and the steady improvement reinforced the belief that reality was precise and that human knowledge was converging toward it. Error shrank. Confidence grew. Reality felt increasingly accessible. This success built an assumption that went largely unnoticed, that properties existed before they were measured. Position, speed, state. Measurement simply revealed them, like lifting a curtain. The universe was imagined as a vast collection of facts waiting to be discovered, and the role of the scientist was simply to read them off with increasing accuracy. But as experiments moved into smaller scales, the curtain refused to lift cleanly. Measuring one property disrupted another. Precision in one place produced uncertainty elsewhere. Outcomes shifted depending on how questions were asked. At first, this was treated as inconvenience, a technical limitation. Surely better tools would restore certainty. Surely the disturbance came from clumsy interaction, not from nature itself. But the disturbance remained even as tools improved. Even when interaction was minimized, even when observation was indirect, measurement itself was the problem. The first shock came when experiments showed that some properties did not exist at all until measured. They were not hidden. They were undefined. Reality did not arrive prepackaged with answers. The universe was not a book waiting to be read. It was more like a conversation in which the answers depended fundamentally on which questions were asked and how they were posed. This was the moment certainty cracked. Not because physics became sloppy, but because it became honest. Measurement was no longer a window. It was a process that helped decide outcomes. How measurement replaced certainty is the story of physics discovering that knowing is not passive. It is participatory. And once that is understood, certainty is no longer something to be found. It is something to be created. At first, physicists tried to rescue certainty by redefining it. Maybe the properties were still there, just disturbed by crude measurement. Maybe reality was precise, but observation was clumsy. With gentler probes and smarter techniques, certainty could be restored. But every refinement made the situation clearer, not cleaner. The more carefully systems were measured, the more strongly outcomes depended on the act of measurement itself. Observation was not adding noise. It was shaping results. The disturbance was not an artifact of imperfect technique. It was a fundamental feature of the interaction between the measuring apparatus and the system being measured, irreducible regardless of how delicately the measurement was performed. This created a deep conflict. If properties did not exist before measurement, then what was reality doing in the meantime? Physics had always assumed a world that waited patiently to be observed. Now it seemed the universe only finalized answers when asked. Experiments confirmed this again and again. Change the measurement setup, and the outcome changed. Ask a different question, and a different reality appeared. Not because the system was confused, but because it was incomplete without interaction. This reframed uncertainty entirely. It was no longer ignorance about hidden facts. It was the absence of facts. Some aspects of reality were genuinely undefined until measurement forced a resolution. Emotionally, this was unsettling. Certainty had felt like the reward for careful work. Now it appeared as a product of interaction, not discovery. Knowledge was no longer something extracted. It was something negotiated, an outcome produced through the interaction between the observer and the observed, shaped by the choices made about what to measure and how to measure it. By this point, measurement had crossed a line. It was no longer a tool for revealing certainty. It was a mechanism that replaced it. Reality did not offer complete answers in advance. It offered possibilities, waiting to be made concrete. The universe existed in a state of genuine openness until measurement intervened, and that openness was not a deficiency to be corrected, but a fundamental characteristic of how reality operates at its deepest level. Certainty was no longer fundamental. Measurement was. The conflict deepened when physicists realized this was not a special case. It was universal. Every attempt to define reality without measurement failed. Properties could not be assigned consistently. Predictions required a context. Answers required a question. This build-up forced a radical shift. Reality was no longer a collection of fixed attributes. It was a set of potential outcomes constrained by rules, waiting for interaction to select among them. Measurement did not disturb certainty. It created it. This became impossible to ignore when experiments delayed measurement itself. Choices made after a system had evolved still determined what could be said about its past behavior, not by rewriting history, but by completing it. Facts were not settled until interaction occurred. Emotionally, this was deeply unsettling. It felt like the universe was withholding answers, like reality refused to commit until confronted. But physics showed this was not indecision. It was structure. The universe was economical with facts. Certainty, it turned out, was expensive. Fixing one property required sacrificing definition elsewhere. Precision came with trade-offs enforced by the rules themselves. Measurement was the act that paid that price. By this point, the old picture had fully collapsed. There was no hidden layer of complete reality waiting to be revealed. What existed before measurement was not ignorance. It was possibility. Measurement had not replaced certainty by accident. It had replaced it because certainty was never available in advance. The climax of this story is a reversal that still feels uncomfortable. Certainty was never taken away from physics. It was never there to begin with. Once this is understood, measurement stops looking like a flaw. It becomes a bridge between possibility and fact. Reality does not arrive fully specified. It becomes specific through interaction. Measurement is not a compromise. It is a mechanism that turns potential into outcome. This insight reshaped how physics understands truth. Truth is no longer a static property waiting to be uncovered. It is contextual, constrained, and dependent on how questions are asked. Different measurements do not reveal different truths. They create different, equally valid ones. More deeply, it reshapes humility. Knowledge is not about uncovering a hidden script. It is about participating in a process. The universe does not lie. It simply does not answer questions that are never asked. Today, this principle quietly governs everything from quantum technologies to fundamental theory. Precision does not eliminate uncertainty. It redistributes it. Certainty does not exist everywhere at once. It exists where measurement forces it to. How measurement replaced certainty is not a story about loss. It is a story about realism. The universe is not vague because it is broken. It is precise because it is constrained. And once that is seen, certainty stops being something we demand from reality. It becomes something we understand as emerging from the act of engagement itself, a product of the relationship between question and answer rather than a property of reality waiting to be uncovered, and becomes something we carefully, deliberately create. Subscribe to join the journey. How